Happy Friday, June 14th. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison, fresh back off her Iceland trip. And let me just tell you, before we jump in, it is Fleet Week here in downtown Baltimore. As those of you who know, I live in Canton, and I just experienced an unbelievable flyover, which happens annually here. It was breathtaking. There's nothing more America than that. I'm feeling fired up right now because there's literal fighter jets above me, and you're probably going to hear them throughout this stream. We got a packed one. Steve Young is talking Lamar Jackson yet again, as he did so eloquently on our show at the end of last year. For those of you who remember Sarah pulling that out of her bag of cards, Mike Florio and Chris Sims, they're talking the other side in terms of Lamar Jackson with somewhat of a I would say an astronomical reach in terms of why his wide receivers aren't getting together with him. I should say some of his wide receivers that are outside of the Florida area that are for off-season workouts. And there's a number of other things, including around 12:40, we'll be pleased to be joined by Qadry Ismail, former Super Bowl winning Raven, to give us his perspective from what he watched this week at mandatory minicamp, including what his son's trying to do right now, which is make the team. Qadry Ismail, the 6'6" wide receiver who worked out with the tight ends yesterday, played his college football at Samford and Villanova. All that and more in what's going to be a packed hour. Great to see you.
Good to see you. Good intro. In another life, I would like to be a fighter pilot. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I have to have better eyesight to get in. I don't know if they let me in with my contacts, but I would love to be a fighter pilot. That just sounds like my cup of tea. But yeah, let's jump in. So Steve Young, Kevin Clark of This Is Football, he just posted this, but this is clearly an interview from the Super Bowl. I'm very curious if you spoke with Kevin before or after I talked to him, because I remember Steve asking me what I think happened and him being like, okay, I'm glad you told me that because now I think this. And then when he said that to me, he went on to the Kevin Clark show and basically, or Kevin Clark show, This Is Football by Omaha Productions, and said the following about our Lamar Jackson.
His arc of his career has been slowed by the Baltimore's fanaticism with the run. They have come out of that trance, and they're trying to transition. This was the transition year.
Yep.
I thought that Lamar has tried to lead his game into a more sophisticated passing game, which is what he needs to be one of the best that ever played, which I've said many times. So I'm going to take this as a transition season, which I thought was very successful. Obviously, the championship game was a complete bummer, but it doesn't negate the advancement that they've made as an organization to give Lamar Jackson a chance to be the greatest that ever played. He can't get there unless you allow him to be a sophisticated passer of the football. They got the coach. They're trying to develop. They need more help at wide receiver. They need another tight end. Look at the talent that Brock Purdy has. Give Lamar Jackson that talent around him. Ask him to be a sophisticated passer, and you will not be able to stop him in any shape or form.
The arc of his career has been slowed by Baltimore's fanaticism with the run. They've come out of that trance. He's a player that has the potential to be as great as anyone we've ever seen. He went on to say, okay, maybe there's a little bit of hyperbole there, but he's saying, yeah, he can be in that tier.
And on top of that, there's such nuance to that clip, right? And go back and listen to the full 3-minute clip too if you want more from Kevin Clark. He's great. Known him for a long time. And to your point, he was literally, this interview was conducted right down the essentially the hallway from where you and I were on Radio Row in Vegas. But then he also says on top of that, right? And you heard it there. It doesn't negate the advancement that they have leaned into. So he's very pointed in an area of critique about their fanaticism, as he says, with the run game. We've all watched that unfold. And did they get a little bit, was it a little bit too much towards the end of the Greg Roman era?
Too far the other way?
Sure.
Yeah.
But then he also makes sure to acknowledge it. Hey, look what they've done. Look who they went and brought in to help Lamar and get to the next step in Todd Monken. Look at the pieces that they've started to build around him. So that right there, I don't know if there's not more in terms of our day-to-day. I'm not sure there's anything that's more satisfying than listening to a guy that has the stature and the influence and the name and the brand that Steve Young has, one of your childhood idols, speak so eloquently and continue to share his unwavering belief in Lamar. It's so, we were lucky enough to listen to it for 40 minutes back in December. You can go check out that conversation if you're new to the program in our video archives. He was tremendous there. Great find by you.
Chuck said, Steve sounds like he wants to coach Lamar. I can tell you, Steve has asked me to put him in touch with Lamar. I have tried. It has yet to come to fruition. I have no direct ties to Lamar. Reached out to him via DM. I tried through the Ravens PR. Nothing has happened, but we do need to get these guys together. I mean, some way, somehow, for sure. Okay, so Bobby, where I kind of want to take this, love everything you just said. Totally agree. It's just wonderful to hear a Hall of Famer who is, and he went on to admit he's jealous of the game today because he was built for the game today, and he just wants the world for Lamar. He clearly wants it. Now, what I want to focus on, and where we're going to take this kind of show in this first topic, because I think it's very relevant to what we're going through with OTA's mandatory camp and as we head into training camp. He said the Ravens were last year, we're in a transition year into becoming a sophisticated passing game. So he's saying they've broken out of the trance. They were in a transition year going into a sophisticated passing game. Okay. So in a transition year, the Ravens were 4th in points per game on offense and 6th in total yards. So it was an overall offense. He was also an MVP for the second time. So pretty nice in that first transition year. And they go to the AFC Championship game. We all know what happened there. Okay, so what's next in this transition into a, quote, sophisticated passing game? Well, as I've been catching up, coming back from Iceland, I recently am going back and listening to press conferences, and I listened to John Harbaugh on the Adam Jones podcast. So what I'm going to do first, Lamar Jackson, and I was just driving home when he was at the pressers on Wednesday. Okay. And they asked him that question, what's next? Now, Lamar gives a very vague answer, but he puts you in the ballpark. So let's first listen to him. What's next?
After the playoff game, John Harbaugh talked about how you guys went right into kind of continuing to evolve the offense, and he said you had a big part in doing that. What was one of the things, kind of the main thing that you wanted to see maybe added into this offense, or maybe something that you guys do but you wanted to see you guys do it better?
Oh, just being able to just change extra plays and stuff like that. And from us just watching film and getting into games, teams changing things up on us, we just want to add extra layers to our just calls, if anything.
Okay, so that was very vague, but we're gonna dive deeper. We want to have extra layers and extra calls so that once we see what they're doing, we're able to respond. He's basically saying on the fly. Okay, so last year was the first year under Monken where they gave him the keys at the line of scrimmage. When I talked to Steve Young at the Super Bowl, he asked me what had happened. And I was fresh off of John Harbaugh's press conference end of season, and he talked about people asking about the run. And there are layers to it. And I agree with those that are criticizing John and Todd Monken for the lack of running. Completely agree. They didn't give Lamar enough tools at the line of scrimmage to change plays as needed. So it's not just, so it is the coaches, but it's also Lamar. It's gotta come from the head coach to the offensive coordinator to the quarterback. For the first time ever, and I'm not trying to harp on the AFC Championship game. I know people want to like leave it behind them, but I'm bringing up, they asked John Harbaugh on the Adam Jones podcast again about the AFC Championship game. I'm cutting to a very significant point on the topic I'm talking about, which is transitioning into a sophisticated passing / just offense overall. John Harbaugh said something on this, Bobby. I'm wondering if you're going to pick up on it. I'll pause it. That he's never said before that I thought was very telling. So I want you to listen to this. Tell me if you hear what I hear.
So, yeah, we got behind, but that doesn't mean you stop running the ball. And I don't think the plan was to stop running the ball. It certainly wasn't. But we didn't have runs to get to in the system or game plan at that time that fit what they were doing. So that's on us. We weren't prepared to run the ball against what they were showing us. Our answers were to throw the ball in that particular plan, and we didn't.
Did you hear that?
We weren't prepared to run the ball?
We didn't. Well, they were prepared.
Can you run that back?
Yeah, let me run it again. Let me run it again.
This is my first time.
But we didn't have runs to get to in the system. Or
let me go for
so, yeah, we got behind, but that doesn't mean you stop running the ball. And I don't think the plan was to stop running the ball. It certainly wasn't. But we didn't have runs to get to in the system or game plan at that time that fit what they were doing. So that
we didn't have runs in the system that fit what they were doing. That was the first time. I can already see comments that he's saying excuses. I don't think so. This is the first time that he's saying we didn't supply within the game plan running answers to what they were showing us. He said we had passing answers because that's what we thought the answers were going to be. And maybe if the Ravens didn't have turnovers, those passing answers would have worked anyway. But he's saying we didn't have running answers to what they showed. I've never heard him say that before. That's more of a coaching thing, because Lamar can't check into those things if it's not built in into the game plan.
Right.
You know what I mean? He can't check into it if it's not built in.
There's nothing to lean on.
There's nothing to check into.
Yeah.
So the answers to what they were showing was only pass. And maybe sometimes passing is the right answer. But the whole point is let Lamar make those decisions, but he's got to have all the options at his disposal to make those decisions based off of what he's saying. Okay, so that was the first time I've ever heard Harbaugh say that. Okay, so let's keep going.
That's on us. We weren't prepared to run the ball against what they were showing us. Our answers were to throw the ball in that particular plan, and we just didn't get it done. We turned the ball over, and we didn't make the plays down the field we needed to make. If we had, we would have. If we hadn't turned the ball over, we'd have made those plays. We would have won the game. The conversation wouldn't have been had. But that's not the big question. The big question is like going forward, how do we take the next step in this offense to make sure that we have the answers we need? In other words, when we want to run the ball and they present us with certain things, how are we going to make sure we're able to do that? How do we build the offense in a way that has the answers that we need when the defense presents them, no matter what game it is, when it is, what time of the year it is? And I think we've done a great job of that. I mean, I'm really excited about what we put together offensively from a system standpoint going into year 2. All of us have been a part of it. Todd's done a great job. Lamar's done a great job. All the coaches have been fantastic. Josh Johnson's out there also in OTAs running it really well. And I would say we put it more in the quarterback's hands in terms of being able to get us to certain plays against certain looks, run and pass, when we want them in real time after we're at the line of scrimmage.
Okay, so the key to that after that last pause was he said, because they asked about the lack of running, and he answered it, and he took some responsibility there, which I don't think he did in the first press conference. I re-listened to that first press conference many times. He mostly was like, well, but like he made it sound like they were stacking the box and they couldn't run. And I went and got the stats, and I'm like, no, they weren't. Like, you guys were throwing even when they weren't stacking the box. So he'd never said it like that before.
Well, the live chat agrees, right? Look at Troy's comment here. Just wow, a true answer to the AFC Championship game. I can live with that for a first-year offense. So we're not alone in those thoughts.
Right. And so you know what? Like, I get it. If you feel like they are stacking sometimes, like, yeah, you want to be able to throw to make the safeties jump back. That's football 101, right? But once you get into more sophisticated offenses, it has to be more than that. It has to be more than that. And so, but moving on, he says, but that's not the question. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because we're talking about Steve Young saying this is a transition. That was a transition year. So what are we doing in 2024? And Harbaugh provides a clue. He says, that's not the question. The big question going forward for us is how to respond with answers at any time, any place. And he says, to do that, we're putting more in the QB's hands. They did it. They already did it last year. We know that Lamar had way more liberty at the line of scrimmage than he had before, but they have to continue to polish that process and give Lamar more options. We're putting more in QB's hands to get us into certain plays against certain looks in real time after we're at the line of scrimmage. So if you want to know what the transition period leads to, it's pre-snap. It's when we're talking about a sophisticated offense, we're talking about quarterbacks that we've seen when Tom Brady goes up or Peyton Manning goes up, and Peyton Manning's like, Omaha, hut, hut, and then all of a sudden he steps back and he like talks to everybody, and then he comes up again. And it's the pre-snap chess match that Lamar was really only allowed to do for the first time last year in an NFL offense anyway. Yeah. He may have been able to do more at Louisville. But that was the first step last year in which he was an MVP. And now they're trying to make it even better and just continue to give him more, but more options after he sees what the defense is giving.
It's the pre-snap diagnosis. It's the pre-snap cadence. It's him processing, right? All this is happening in real time, right up at the line, allowing Lamar to showcase what we all know that he has, because we saw it last year in a pro-style offense for the first time consistently since he ran it with Bobby Petrino. It allows him to put his entire football mind to work right there in real time. So like Troy's comment, I think was really kind of well said here a second ago. Like he accepted the fact that this was a first-year offense, much like Steve is saying to Kevin back in February that this was a transitional year. Well, what are your expectations for a transitional year? Look, I get it. You know, it's Super Bowl or bust in these parts, but if you look at it on a fine scale, what they were working with, given how slow of a start they had, Monken and Lamar working together. Remember the drag that they would refer to in the opening months of the season? Man, they knocked it out of the park when you look at it from a full body of work in a transitional year. Now you add layers, which is why we're hearing a lot about cadence. You mentioned that yesterday.
Right.
And so this is just that natural progression that I think we're going to start to watch unfold.
One more thing before we get to cadence, because cadence is a big part of that pre-snap thing, but it's not the only part, but we're going to dive deeper into that. So that was his answer to the next evolution of the offense, is like, we got to put more into the quarterback's hands. Now let's zoom in a little bit. Adam Jones came back many questions later and said, listen, Lamar Jackson's a 2-time MVP. And as a 2-time MVP, can he still grow? And Adam Jones already knows the answer is yes, because he's a superstar athlete and he knows that no matter how on top of your game is, you have to continue to have a mindset that I can still get better. Lamar Jackson, I refuse to believe that he's peaked. There's no way he's peaked, which is saying a lot as a 2-time MVP. I know he can get better. So Adam Jones asked John Harbaugh, what's the next, where can Lamar Jackson grow? And there's one phrase in here that I really picked up on, given the context that we're talking with pre-snap stuff.
From a pure football standpoint, there's always room for growth. And when you step back and you lean into that, you see that there's massive opportunities for growth. That's just what a growth mindset is. And so the opportunity to what we're trying to do with the offense, within the offense, to operate, throws that he can make, reactions he can make, uncovering a defense, all those type of things that go with playing the quarterback. He'll say all of it. That's probably what his answer would be. And you know what? That's exactly right. He's got so much growth in all of it. And then the ability to carry a team, you carry a team on Sunday, you also carry a team into Sunday, carry a team throughout the course of the season, through all the highs and lows. That's another level that he's definitely growing into.
He's already carried a team.
No, but for sure, Lamar has carried it. He's talking in the context of is there room for even more of that, right? Is there more of that? But what I was focusing in on, given the context of our conversation here, is the more X's and O's. And he said, given where we're headed with our offense, and again, this is just the second year that Lamar's running it. He said reactions, and then he said uncovering a defense. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a skill. And it's not just going and looking where people are at, but making them do things to show tells, right? And then being able to react into that and being able to do the checks that I know Lamar can do, especially as well as he did in the first year, but can be even better. So uncovering a defense is that next step. And I always think back to those Manning. Ray Lewis still says to this day that the most difficult quarterback he played was Peyton Manning, even more than Tom Brady, even though Tom Brady has all the rings. And it was because of the chess match that Ray would have as the quarterback of the defense at linebacker, and Peyton Manning would have. And then Peyton would do all these little tricks pre-snap to try to figure out what Ray and his group was going to do. And then Ray was trying to do all this stuff to deceive him, right? Because of how much film he studied and all of that. And so that's the next step, since Lamar's only been doing it for 1 year in the NFL.
Think about those cues too. They can be nonverbal and verbal.
Oh yeah.
Right. You've watched we've both watched the documentaries that you're referring to when Ray looks at Peyton like that and talks about their battles. And that's the evolution of Lamar, right? Pre and post snap. So
absolutely. And that's where, as you brought up a few minutes ago, I won't read this whole thing, but Jonas Schaefer, if you get a chance, I thought wrote an excellent in-depth article on what Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, are doing with his cadence pre-snap. So and cadence can help with uncovering defense, but there's a lot more to it. Cadence is a very specific part of your pre-snap chess match. But Bobby, I know that I was gone, but you covered how the offensive line had a bunch of false starts during minicamp, and then they were making them run laps. Well, this is like the pain you go through in June so that you're not doing this in September, because they're all learning the new cadences also. Mm-hmm. And so Jonas Schaefer kind of wrote about this anecdote from inside of practice where, Lamar goes to the line of scrimmage and Odafe Owe is lined up in front of Ronnie Stanley. And Jackson goes up and he, gives a hard hut, so Odafe Owe thinks that the ball's snapped. So he jumps and starts going, and Stanley mirrors him. And the whistles blow, and the offense and the defense are both pointing at the other saying, no, it was Owe offsides. And the defense is like, no, Stanley had a false start. And then you looked over at the center with Tyler Linderbaum, and the ball hadn't been snapped. And so Owe was offsides. And so I love this paragraph. Jonas Schaefer says this. He says, Jackson is perhaps the NFL's most gifted improviser, capable of turning nothing into something on any given play. But the Ravens' focus at organized team activities in this week's mandatory minicamp has been on what he can do before the snap. That's what we've been talking about. So much of what makes Jackson special cannot be taught. His off-season voice lessons, he's calling them this cadence stuff, voice lessons. He said his off-season voice lessons are a welcome exception. And Harbaugh says, he's quoted here, he says, we're doing a lot with cadence. We're doing a lot with at-the-line communication, and it's challenging. So we understand there are going to be those moments of indecision, and you have a choice. We want to get good at it because we think cadence is a weapon. And we want to be able to communicate at the line, and we want to be able to protect our communication, close quote. Jonas Schaefer goes on. Quarterback cadence, the verbiage a quarterback uses at the line of scrimmage to organize and then start a play, is more art than it is science. Every quarterback has his own taste in the medium, but only the most exceptional are recognized. Jackson does not have verbiage as distinctive as Dak Prescott's or a hard count as effective as Patrick Mahomes, but his first year under offensive coordinator Todd Monken started with more pre-snap empowerment. And I need to get this off the page because it's covering it up. How do I get that off?
And ended with his second NFL Most Valuable Player award.
Thank you, Bobby.
There you go.
And then next page. There we go. Jackson has drawn 5 offensive penalties since 2019, according to True Media, tied for 10th most in the NFL among quarterbacks. So 10th, upper third, right? Not phenomenal, but above average. So he's 10th. Prescott and Mahomes have been by far the league's best in that stretch, drawing 17 and 14 respectively. But the value of cadence goes beyond penalty yardage. The NFL's best pre-snap operators change plays effectively and efficiently. They get defenses to show their hand. So this is uncovering a defense. Yep. They get defenses to show their hand before the snap. They cut through the din of opposing crowds. The Ravens' hope for 2024 is that Jackson can be as hard to pin down before the snap as he is after it. Martin, quarterback's coach, called Wednesday's practice, quote, probably the best day in a long time of him really just having the freedom to do what he wants to do at the line of scrimmage. So you want to know what the evolution is under Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken for 2024. It's this pre-snap chess match. So that Lamar just is empowered even more than he was last year and has all the tools that he needs and polishes it to become that sophisticated offense that Steve Young was talking about.
That's a fantastic breakdown. And I think T. Martin, as the quarterback's coach, the aforementioned T. Martin, is just the guy to be alongside Lamar for this as a former quarterback himself who achieved quite a bit, particularly in the college ranks. So I think that shouldn't be, understated or I guess, overstated, understated, one of those two. Overstated. Don't overstate the significance of. No, is it understate or overstate?
It can't be overstated. You're saying that it's important, right? Then it cannot be overstated.
Thank you.
I got you.
Thank you. But great breakdown.
Yeah.
Which brings us, in about 10 minutes from now, we'll have Qadry Ismail on. So glad you guys are with us. By the way, I should have mentioned this at the top. This live stream is brought to you by one of our small business Patreon title sponsors from this month, and that is our guy, Sharu Hashmi. So thank you, Sharu. Appreciate all the support that you give us. And that now brings us to a different clip from national media yesterday that I found on YouTube, Pro Football Talk.
Nowhere near as sophisticated as what we went through. So
certainly
we'll
not.
dumb it down here for a minute.
A little bit. This pains us to share with you. But as we've talked about in the past, Mike Florio and Chris Sims have a pretty darn big platform on Pro Football Talk, and they recently reacted to these comments made from Lamar that we discussed yesterday, and that was surrounding this idea of getting together with his receivers before training camp on their own time down in South Florida. And Lamar said, I would love to do that, but some guys don't want to leave their state. And you remember the tone that he used this is. And to be honest with you, instead of just reading the transcript, I'm just going to bring this up real quick because I know that it's right here. Lamar and Jamison Hensley's exchange earlier this week.
With the receivers, the tight ends, about getting together for an off-season, for a summer break, throwing session. I mean, is that something that you would like to do?
I would love to do that, but some guys don't want to leave their state. They're going to have to come to South Florida. They're going to have to do it. We got to. We're trying to get to that Super Bowl, man. And for us to do that, we got to grind. We got to build chemistry.
So, Sarah, as we discussed, this was the last question in his press conference, and you thought prior to that last question, man, this is a pretty quiet one for Lamar, kind of underwhelming, not a lot going on, probably not going to be a ton of reaction around this. Well, Chris Sims and Mike Florio had other ideas. Here they are reacting to and making a pretty significant claim about why the guys outside of South Florida, outside of Lamar's sort of off-season home base, if you will, won't come to work out with him.
I remember many occasions where quarterback wants to get together with receivers and they say no. I don't know. Maybe it's happened and they just don't talk about it very much, but that is kind of surprising to me. Is anybody going to tell Patrick Mahomes no? Is anybody going to tell Josh Allen no? Is anybody going to tell Tom Brady no? Again, and there's a sweet spot I think you need to find as a quarterback where you're friends with the other guys that you throw the football to, but at the end of the day, when you say something, they're going to do it. They're going to listen. They're going to show up. You're not going to get pushback that they don't want to come to South Florida. They're going to be there because they're as committed as you are. And maybe it's just a byproduct of, hey, we were at OTAs and you weren't.
I don't doubt there's some of that.
South Florida?
Exactly.
Why do I have to come down there when you could have come here and you skipped all those OTA days?
I think there's probably a little of that. I think that's probably why he was so positively animated, too. He knew the questions he was about to get, and he was going to try to fight through it with positive energy and have fun, right?
So, as I pull up the actual quote itself that you just listened to, which of course I can't find now. Let's just hear the last of what Chris had to say. Sorry, I cut him off.
Sorry.
Oh, I would expect that there's probably some of that in these guys' minds.
Okay. So Florio is suggesting essentially there in the middle part of that clip that the reason why Lamar's outside of Florida contingent wide receivers aren't inclined to work out with him in South Florida is because of his lack of commitment to the voluntary organized team activities this offseason. And the quote, he says, maybe it's just a product of, hey, we were at OTAs and you weren't. Why do I have to come down there when you could have come here and you skipped all those OTA days? Mike essentially putting words in Ravens wide receivers' mouths. To me, it feels like an astronomical reach. Did you see Sauce Gardner's tweet yesterday kind of referencing the Aaron Rodgers criticism that's out there right now about him, what was called an unexcused absence, which then Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Jets, kind of came back and was like, no, we knew this was happening. This was in play. Sauce got up there as his teammate on the defensive side of things and was like, look, are you guys really making a big deal out of this? It's not a big deal in the building. And I think that while that's a different organization, and you certainly don't want to compare the two to one another because they're night and day when it comes to the Jets and the Ravens, I think that might speak collectively within these locker rooms in terms of what matters to them, what they hear. And this just feels like it's a complete overreaction, one that's, again, just an astronomical reach. And why is that even like a legitimate thought? That's speculation times 1,000.
Also, if you're going to try to put words in receivers' mouths, I'm just curious what research they did. Did they know that Rashad Bateman said on the lounge that he plans on going to Florida this offseason to work out with Lamar? Did they do research to see how often the top wide receivers were at OTAs themselves? Because Rashad Bateman probably attended half. Lamar was just under half. There was 9 total, but I believe Lamar was at 4.
They may not even know that Zay and Nelly are actually located there and have been a part of it.
Yeah. Do they know how often he's gotten together with guys, with some of the guys already? Does he know that I think of all of his receiving weapons, including tight end, and I'm talking about the ones that are expected to have a major role. So the Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. The only person out of those names I just named was at all of them that was at all OTAs was Likely, who's going into his 3rd year.
Yeah.
Did they do any of that research? Because how could a wide receiver say to Lamar, "Oh, well, you didn't come to OTA, so I'm not coming to you"? All Lamar would be like, "But bro, you were at half of them too." Like Mark Andrews may have been at less than Lamar or about the same. Same with Rashad Bateman. They were there at different times, but when Lamar was there, Bateman happened to be out. And then when Bateman was there, Lamar happened to be out. Like that just kept happening all year. So there's not even any research done. It's just throwing this stuff out.
Well, you want to know what it is?
Which, by the way, I've said things before without research, but if I'm going to put out something negative about somebody's reputation, I'm going to do the research. What's that? What were you going to say?
What I think this was all prompted by was when you were gone, Lamar was asked about the $750,000 workout bonus that was essentially forfeited because of lack of attendance. Mike was the one who reported that, as you know. Then Jerry Coleman asked the follow-up, which we covered. Lamar said, "I've never talked about my contract up here before. I'm not about to start today," with a smile on his face. Then Mike and Chris yesterday used that answer as a way to build their show around the fact that Mike has never, he's as a former attorney, he's always had an obsession and dissected Lamar's decision-making when it comes to his representation. And he took the approach that, hey, that $750,000 would have been your 3% had you used an agent, right? So he used that to kind of go back to what he clearly has not gotten over, and that is Lamar Jackson's decision-making throughout the contract process.
Yeah.
That then went down the road of speculation, and here we are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, it literally couldn't be something that the receivers say, because other than Likely, nobody was there the full time either.
Right. So. It was astronomical.
Big reach.
Yeah. Big reach. Speaking of quarterbacks, speaking of contracts, Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence reached agreement on a 5-year, $275 million contract extension. That's $200 million guaranteed, $142 million of which is at signing, and this keeps T-Law in Jacksonville. Big deal.
Huge. And it's one of those where whoever is the latest gets the most money, especially if you're like a top, I don't know where I would put Trevor Lawrence. Would you say he's top 12? I guess I'd have to think through everybody.
Somewhere within top 10, top 12.
Yeah, maybe top 10. I'd have to go and look at all the names. But what we will see here, though, because it's always the latest, Lamar signed his deal basically last year, a little bit before this time, a couple minutes before. And so he was the highest paid in terms of money per year. And he's been knocked down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's now the 5th highest paid quarterback. Trevor Lawrence at the $55 million per year. Then Joe Burrow, also at $55 million. Jared Goff, $53 million. Justin Herbert, $52.5. Lamar Jackson, $52. And Jalen Hurts, $51. So it's just how the market goes. Each guy ups the last one by $1 million or $2 million.
Tell you what, I know this is part of Trevor's game because he takes chances, right? That's like part of one of it. Like he's just an aggressive player. He's atop a list that you don't want to be on. The most turnovers over the last 3 seasons at the quarterback position is Trevor with 60 total turnovers. Josh Allen is at 59. Mahomes is at 46. Derek Carr, 44. Dak Prescott, 43. And I get it. Like sometimes these are like fumbles, right? Well, what's the context behind these?
Well, you said turnovers. That's fumbles and interceptions combined.
Right. Meaning, yeah, but just like when we talk about, like I was kind of referencing in my mind, I was like, oh, remember when Rasheen Ali was drafted and we saw the stat on fumbles throughout college?
Oh,
well, what's the context behind that?
Yeah.
You know? So like, what's the context behind Trevor's turnovers? You know, is it?
Well, that's true. I think the context is important, turnover by turnover. But once you start getting into several years worth,
yeah,
then context isn't as much needed. It's like there's a trend at that point.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like 60 over how many years?
60 over 3.
I mean, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Where's
right?
Lamar? Do you have do you have that in front of you?
Just has the top 5.
Oh, okay. So Lamar's not in the top 5.
CBS
which is funny because it seems like sometimes Lamar gets a bad rap for turnovers, but I think it was because of all those fumbles on the handoff exchanges.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Or maybe it's in killer moments or whatever.
Yep.
But
that was early season mesh point stuff, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, Trevor, I mean, gosh, as a passer and just with his mobility, the guy's got a chance to. I mean, if you're Jacksonville, you have
to. For sure. He can get better.
If you're Jacksonville, I mean, here's a similar graphic put together by CBS that looks at the most passing yards in the first 3 seasons of a career, and he's on the list with Peyton Manning. You know, like he's got just below 12,000 passing yards over his first 3 seasons. So you know he can sling the rock.
Yeah.
A guy who liked to catch the rock is waiting in the waiting room. And what a banner few weeks for the Ismail family. Huh? It's been pretty cool. We look forward to having our old friend on the show here in the heat of summer on a really steamy Baltimore day. Our guy, Qadry Ismail. Welcome back, Q. What's up?
I'm breathing. I'm exhaling. I am happy to be on with you. Awesome, amazing, great podcasters that you are.
We're happy to be on with you, Q.
And we're salutations back here in the United States from Iceland. I hope your trip with the fam was a wonderful one.
I appreciate that. I always you're always one of my favorite commenters on Instagram. I keep it to a very small group, Q. You've made it through onto my Instagram account because not everybody gets access to the fam. Speaking of family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Come on, man. Like,
get to it.
Talk about like your heart coming out of your chest, probably. Look at you, Ryan Mink caught this moment. You talking to your son Kadir in a Ravens purple and black uniform, the one that you once donned and won a Super Bowl ring with. How are you feeling right now with like everything that's going on with him right now?
Yeah, it's been you have words for it every now and then, but I think I've had my blinders on, and the reason why is it's because I've kind of realized what it takes from the obviously business side of it all, and you're on a 90-man roster and all that entails. But then when I do get tweets like this, that to be honest with you, to kind of set the scene, what happens is after every practice, for those who have never been to the on our performance center, you have the building. In this particular picture, the building is
behind you
to our back, and there is a corner where all the media meet up with, John Harbaugh and whomever is at the podium. With that said, for Qadry, you could see in the background there's jugs machines guys, and they're rolling in the jugs machines back into the facility. He just finished a catch drill that some 3 decades ago I actually put together for myself and my trainer. And I was like, yo, this is your catch drill, blah, blah, blah. And I've been doing that for quite a while with him. So he has now taken it as his own. And, that catch drill is being put away, or at least the jugs machine is being put away. So he's walking down towards me. I am thinking I'm all clandestine. Like, you don't see me. Everyone is focused in on who's at the podium. Shh, I'm going to tiptoe down. I'm literally like, I got my bucket hat on. I'm just going to tiptoe down. No one will know that I'm talking to my son. I don't want to create any waves or anything. And like this one, David, who does the Spanish-speaking broadcast for the Ravens. Yeah. He had posted something. There's a couple other people who did. And I'm like, dang it. I'm thinking I'm incognito, and I'm not realizing. Heck, even my own guys for WJZ, they also took some video of it. And I'm like, holy smokes. I'm so locked in and dialed in that I can't see.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really is a humbling, awesome experience. Because now I'm in the thick of it. I'm talking like, the nuance of everything and how to be a pro, how to do your job, how to, establish yourself, how to kind of get through some of the hierarchy and the politics and blah, 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 and all the things. But it's been a wonderful ride, and I am over the moon proud of it.
Well, now, we got you for your best perspective, right? Like you know this guy better than anybody. And so here he is, rocking number 83 throughout camp. As Jeff noted on X, he worked with some tight ends yesterday. Harb said that the Ravens are just exploring a few things, but he's been really impressed with Qadry, who made some plays this week. So tell us about the 6'6" wide receiver who played college football at Samford and Villanova, and what you think this transition period could be like.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. My brother and I, Rocket, so Raghib and I were inducted into the Luzerne County Hall of Fame last weekend. We were actually traveling last week today to travel up to our hometown of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And as we were traveling, we were just, chopping it up, talking about football and our experiences, different teams and all that. And so, clearly Qadry's name came up, and, we were talking about different coaches and college and the pros that made an influence on us. And we just talked about how the game slowed down. Well, Qadry and I are sitting there, and obviously, there's segments to everything that, you kind of look at. And obviously the, pre-draft, then there's right after the draft, then there is, this OTA, mini camp. And so you have these different mile markers. So this mile marker ends, and now the next mile marker would be, the rookie school that the Ravens coaches put on. And then that mile marker ends, and then it's like ramp up, because now you go to training camp. It's a different, ramping up for Qadry. Looking back at some of the things that went on at Samford, looking back at some of the things that went on at Villanova, the quality of a human that he is. Sarah and Bobby, don't worry, you'll speak to this, I'm sure, one day. But for Sarah and I mean, there is nothing in the world like being a parent. There's nothing. You are selfish as a person trying to go through life. The moment for Sarah, she knows it more than I will ever know. But the moment the child enters the world, and I had the privilege of all 3 of my kids being the first person to physically touch them in the world outside of their mom. And for Qadry, I mean, homeboy pushed away from the table. Was like, all right, here you go. I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, he's coming out right now. So I was like really there. The selflessness that you instantaneously, and maybe it's a little bit sooner for a woman than it is for a man, but all I know is the selflessness that happens when your child comes in and just like, okay, look at me getting all choked up on it, but you just you cannot, you don't realize the limits that you'll go through for your children, and you want them to be at their absolute best. And you know that you got to go. There's a verse that says, even though you go through the fire, you'll not be burned. And that verse means so much to me because I recognize that I don't want my children to have everything in life. I want them to be seasoned for the hard shit that will come about in life, because life isn't easy and life is challenging and life is hard. It's the person that is able to manage and be able to navigate it and still maintain who they are as a person that matters the most. And so with all that said, you know, his Sanford and Villanova experiences weren't idealistic. You know I had my trials in college, but yeah, sure. You know, my son, my son says, Dad, come on, like, Dad. You're one of the fastest people in the freaking all of college. I have like my storage of all my stuff of, you know, all the awards and everything and storage. And I'm like, he's like, Dad, chill. You freaking was a 2-sport All-American. Look at all the medals that you've won. Look at all the awards. You're like, Dad, you know, just realize that you had a tough experience. I get it. But come on, look at your resume. And I pause and I think, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. You know, I look at it as like, well, you know, I broke my finger right at the moment I was going to start and I had to get it operated on. Or I look at, you know, like, oh my God, I remember, you know, being benched, or I remember all these trials. But to his point, I think the way in which he handled his trials and to come through it, to then November 18th, 2023, to sit there, his last game at Sanford, all these frustrating, angry dad emotions. I was like, it ain't about you, Qadry Ismail. It's about Qadry Ismail. And sit back, hold my mouth. But then picking him up 10 days later from Sanford, and literally we mapped out 16 straight weeks to his pro day. And so at that time, when I'm looking at it, I'm saying to myself, I have trained so many athletes. I have seen so much. I have trained him through some of his thick and thins. This is the most important time that I'll have to do when it comes to, not the science is the science of it all. Yes, sure, you got to do certain things for your muscular system, blah, blah, blah. But the art of it all. I took him, he and his sister went to, I believe it was either the Miami game or the Rams game. I think it was Miami. And I said, Qadry, I want you to go to the game with me, and I want you to take notes. I mean, see beyond what the normal fan sees. The amount of notes that he took as far as like what he saw on the sideline, on both sidelines, what he saw in the game. And I was like, my man, like, I'm telling you right now, keep that, because I'm telling you, you're going to do something. So let me fast forward it, and I'm not trying to hijack the podcast. I'm on a roll. I apologize.
Keep going.
Literally, when we are sitting there, and I'm like, the combine is coming up. And I'm like, I'm Qadry Ismail. I got connections, but this is a different animal. Like, you can't mess around with, and for the sake of Sarah, I'm not cursing, but you can't F around with like scouts in their off season or the off season is their Super Bowl. Like, that's when scouts shine. And so I'm like delicately calling people and trying to make connections. And like some stiff-armed me, some didn't. Well, I got a message into David Blackburn, and I might have to break down and cry right now. Homeboy is with the Commanders. But you talk about like once a Raven, always a Raven. I'm like, I don't care about his resume. I don't care what you think. All I know is my son can play ball. All I am asking for is an opportunity to be viewed. I don't care about me. I ain't trying to get no quote unquote privilege bullshit. I ain't trying to get any entitlement crap. I ain't trying to none of that. All I want to do is get eyes. That's it. And if you feel, in your opinion, and it's an expert one, that it ain't happening, I can live with it. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sitting there and I'm navigating. We go down to University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB. I'm sitting there. All the scouts are there. Qadry aces his pro day, but he doesn't get a chance to do his skill work. So now Papa Bear sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm his consigliere, but I am like angry inside. I'm like, who the you think you are? And you don't give my son a chance. But now I'm sitting there like, yeah. Hello, everyone. I am not going to say anything. I'm going to shake everybody's hand and we're going to walk away. Qadry just did amazing, but that's okay. Literally from there, David Blackburn calls me that morning. He goes, hey, Qadry, I know you guys are trying to get into the pro day up in Maryland. Not going to happen. Here's the deal. I got my guys coming to the Towson Pro Day, and I want you guys to go there. You think I was like, bro, oh, shit, done.
David Blackburn, by the way, for those that don't know, Ravens, well, he just left the Commanders, but Ravens big-time scout. Kept moving up the chains. Oh, yeah. Keep going. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So David is sitting there now, and I'm like, Qadry, I call up a couple of my boys, and I was like, hey, so, Qadry didn't get a shot. Brad Jackson, who is in scouting as well, bluntly can be, was like, F that. Don't worry about it. What was his numbers? I was like, boom, boom, boom. Here's his numbers. He was like, bruh, that's all that matters. He's in the national database. F all that. I was like, okay. So I'm like, encourage my own self. So I'm composed. We go down to Towson. First of all, okay, I'm not going to go ahead and go down the other road. I'm just going to say those Towson people, if they ever need me to vouch for them, if they ever need me to speak for them, whatever they need me to do, I'm going to do. That head coach, his staff was the most welcoming, non-ego, awesomest people ever. Their players, awesomest dudes, coolest dudes ever. I was like, this is like, what? This is like valid. Like the head coach at Towson, like, man, will be forever the hugest fan. Their offensive coordinator, homeboy, was talking to me how he knew Brian Billick and they were boys and all the things. And I was like, man, well, let's go ahead to the specifics. Darius Hayward-Bay, former Terp, former first-round draft choice for the Oakland Raiders, played in the league for a hot minute and balled. Well, homeboy was one of the scouts that came in on David Blackburn's staff. And so now they come in, and I'm like, game recognizes game. I got to say something. And I was like, hey, bro, what's going on? Qadry, man, bro, come on, boom. Gives me some love. He's like, I know you are. Come on. So we start talking. And I was like, I mean, some of the like, I know it's kind of like a fly on the wall type of thing, but some of the things that we're talking about, like so many nuances about, the art of receiver, and plus some of the other things that he had learned from some of the veterans that he had been a part of, like Antonio Brown, for example, when he was at Pittsburgh, and just teaching them how to get in and out of breaks, and personalities, larger than life personalities, guys that we played with. So anyway, long story short of it, he takes Qadry through a private receiver specific workout with some of the Towson quarterbacks. Crushes it. Qadry crushes it. Literally, I'm sitting there 45 minutes later. Qadry is like, Dad, how did I do? So I don't, I know you, Sarah, as well. Like, you just don't BS your kids. You just like, you shoot it to them straight. Now, there's a difference between vinegar and honey. If it's deserving of vinegar because you didn't study for whatever, then you're going to get the vinegar. But 99.9% of the time, you're going to get the honey, but it's straight. It's raw. Boom. Like, here's some growth. I was like, Qadry, I've been playing, I've been watching, I've been observing. I have been around literally scouts, been around great coaches, all that, all of me. Qadry, you aced that session, like aced it, crushed it. Awesome. Routes were crisp and clean with no caffeine, all of it, all of it. Literally 45 minutes later, hey, Qadry, this is David. Just wanted to touch base with you. Man, your son. So he started giving me the evaluation. So now, like, I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, my God. Oh, this is me. I'm about to pass out. Qadry's sitting next to me, and, like, I'm sitting there like, I'm composed. Nothing is going on. You're listening to the conversation. And so now David is like, man, he was really good. My guys, they said that he caught everything, really catches the ball well. He's 6'6", like legit. I was like, yeah, he is. And he's like, man, I think we feel so good about it that I want to give him a local day tryout. And so I was like, you can't tell me nothing. So I hung up the phone. So this is like 18 weeks of like, just like, and I mean, the young man was showing up every single time. So I'm sitting there like, okay. I hung up the phone, got out the car. I screamed so loud. And I was like, I know it. Like, I'm like, oh, just like, damn. So once that was done, I go back in the car like, all right, Qadry, we got work to do. I was like, and this was hilarious. Big shout out to Towson. Big shout out to Towson forever. Man, y'all, hey, I hope they go undefeated, and I hope they crush that team up north in Philly. I hope they slaughter them every time they play them. Anyway, with that said, literally as I'm sitting there, like I was like, oh, here he goes. So, Dad, all right, I get the local day, but are you coming over to Under Armour Performance Center with me? I was like, shut up. Are you kidding me? Hell no. I was like, bro, you are a grown-ass man. You going over there by yourself. You going to put out and do all what you need to do. I mean, all right, you ain't seeing me around there. I was like, nah, this is all you. So he goes over, and it's cool because of the way the Ravens production team, they do all their videos. Like, I've watched all the videos. I watched their Wired and all that. And, it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome. I was a part of it. Heck, I hosted a ton of their shows. But it cracks me up because as I'm sitting there, I'm like, this time I'm like, oh, I see him right there. Oh, there he is. Oh. And it's like, a second. And now I'm extrapolating from like a half a clip of a second. Oh, my God. Did you see what he just did? So
right, we texted about that with Greg Lewis. I was like, hey, did you see him? He was right there.
Yes.
Getting coached up by Greg.
And his local day, they were like, hey, man, he did his thing. We feel confident that, he's the type of player we'd love to see on our 90-man roster. David reiterated, he goes, man, I'm telling you, like, he's 6'6". I laughed because I'm like, yeah, he's tall.
Where did it come from, Q?
Say it again.
Where did that 6'6" height come from?
So his mom's side of the family, they have height. And I'm the tallest in my family, but my uncle There's height there as well. So there's some DNA integration.
Finding its way to Qadry. Okay.
Say again?
The DNA's found its way to Qadry.
The DNA found its way to Qadry, yes. So he's legit. And so long story short, again, for me, in my mind, I'm like, all right, draft day is coming. What do I do? I'm sitting there, I'm watching every bit of it. Boom, first round, boom. Next day comes, that final day. Now there's some other teams that kind of like pre-called Qadry. That was cool. Don't need to mention their names. But I was like, cool. Hey, Qadry, you're on their radar. Let's go. All of a sudden, draft is over with. And so we know that there's this big hustle. Well, I was sitting there. EDC goes, yeah, you know, I got a text message from Coach Dayball of Clemson. Hey, you gotta draft Nate Wiggins. You're not gonna regret it. So I was like, whew, this is the longest 45 minutes of my life. And so Qadry, you know, we're sitting on the couch. He comes and sits literally right next to me. So now my composure is like, we know we got teams to choose from, but if they're not going to call within 10 minutes, and this is all my thinking, I was like, it's probably going to be a camp invite, and so be it. Hey, I'm not going to trip. We got to do what we got to do. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I was like, that 30-minute mark went by. Man, they're filling up rosters. I texted David. I go, hey, I'm no Dabo Sweeney, but I do know a young man who can ball out and play. And I think he would make a great addition to y'all 90-man roster. And so I press send. Whew. Message comes back again. Hey, Q, we are going to call you in 10 minutes. I was like, my man. So now these other teams, they all of a sudden call in. And I was like, Qadry, we got to be patient. Called in, boom. David was like, hey, the best I can do is have him come in for a rookie minicamp tryout. But I think knowing what I know and what he's already done, like he knows the staff, he knows everything. I was like, that's all we need is just another chance, another opportunity. I get it. Boom, hang up the phone with him. Now all of a sudden, like I'm sitting there like, okay, this isn't me. This is about him. We got to make a decision. I literally laid it out like this team has this team has this. This is the Ravens, and this is what they got. What do you feel? Sat there, he weighed the options. He was like, Dad, I think they've been upfront with me all the way. Blah 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 blah. I think I can at least have a strong opportunity. I was like, boom, done. You call them back. Call them back. Blah blah blah. Process started. And here we are. So those mile markers, and then I'll just stop with the hijacking of your podcast. I think those mile markers were really significant because yesterday in OTAs and stuff, John was saying, man, I'm really intrigued with what I'm seeing from him. He's big, he's physical, and he runs routes really well. And I was like, cool, and just watching him work with some of the receivers and stuff and some of the nuances that I saw. But then yesterday, when he was working with the tight end group and just showing some things, and he went over it. So basically, because you got 90-man roster, you got what is called double down. So you'll have one field where it's the ones and the twos, and then you'll have the other field where it's all the other guys that are getting in reps. So that 2B unit, 3 and 3s will be over on the other field working. And it's really cool because it catches you up and it gives you a chance to get reps. And man, he did this one block, and don't need to say the other guy's name, but he hemmed him up. And I was like, yeah, y'all don't know. So he hemmed him up. Well, my highlight of the day, he had some really amazing catches all throughout the week. But the one, so you get a chance to go with Lamar, but it's only in certain periods.
Yeah.
Yesterday, they were like rotating guys in and out a lot. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So he was rotating over on the other field as a receiver and a tight end and an F. So those are X, Y, and F. And those are 3 positions. And knowing what I know now about Monken's system, man, that jazz is mentally tough, but he was locked in. So now all of a sudden, all right, last drill of the, or last period of the day, and they're like rotating guys and out. And I'm looking at the quarterback. I'm like, oh, snap. That ain't number 10. That ain't Emory. O-M to the G. That's 8. Okay. Okay, Qadry, you're fine. You know, just stay in analyst mode. You can handle it. Like, no. All of a sudden, dad, it ain't time. Qadry runs his route against Brandon Stevens. Goes to the back of the end zone. Whoa, snatches it out of the air.
From Lamar.
I tell you, like, I was like, literally from a father aspect of things, I wanted to run onto the field and do the whole thing, make a fool of myself. I had the most composed reaction, and I just said, and I just let it breathe.
Yeah.
But inside, I mean, fireworks are just jumping up and down. I do recognize that, hey, that is a mile marker period that has ended, and there's so much more to go. But you sometimes just got to stop, think about it, reflect on it, so you can positively move forward. And there you go. You can have your podcast back.
Man, congratulations. That was awesome.
That is awesome. I appreciate you opening up, Q. I know that's like you start talking about your kids, and when you watch them go through adversity and then overcome, like I don't know who's happier, them or the parent. And the other part that really stood out to me is when you talked about like you got to let them have their trials, because you go from a parent from having to protect them all the time as little kids, but the hardest transition for a parent is to realize, no, you don't protect them from trials anymore. You prepare them for it, so when they come, they don't flinch. You already know how not to flinch. You've been through that yourself. Now it's Qadry's time to learn how not to flinch. That's your job, not to protect him from it, but to prepare him for it. So that was great. As they say, perfect Father's Day gift. Q, before we let you go, we just need to get a couple notes from you. We're a little past our lunch hour, but can we get some of your thoughts on the Ravens wide receiver core? I specifically want to get to Rashad Bateman. We hadn't heard a lot about him. He wasn't making a lot of noise. Finally, yesterday we heard he kind of had probably his busiest day, maybe his best day. What are your impressions of Rashad Bateman coming off of that contract extension and how he's performed in OTAs and mandatory?
So I think looking at just the way in which he handles himself as a pro is phenomenal. And I'm talking nuance now, like the way he kind of comes out to practice, the way he, kind of has a walk to him, like, yeah, this is my time. I'm healthy. His route running, I think it was Wiggs. He went up against Brandon Stevens. I think he went up against Tampa Jr. and Arthur Millette. And I'm telling you, like, Rashad Bateman was just like housing fools, like housing them. Ha, 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 separation, like snatching the ball out of the air. Then came like a dry period where, and you want this, as we all know, receivers were divas, we're a pain in the ass. Well, homeboy was flexing his pain in the assness, and he was kind of a little bit frumpy, grumpy, and I don't blame him because he wasn't getting the rock. And so I was like, okay, like, what's he going to do? It was cool because it was competitively grumpy, frumpy, angry, not like, and kind of like being like a malcontent. So I thought that was like a good maturing kind of like, all right. And that last practice, he could have easily been one of those guys that just like, yeah, whatever, blah, 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 and all the other things. But he came out, ironically enough, Steve Bisciotti was sitting there, Ravens owner was sitting there talking to Zay. Then Bate came out, and then he was talking to both young receivers. I'd be curious to see what they were talking about, but they were a fly on the wall and all that. Matter of fact, the receivers were doing drills right in front of, Steve's golf cart. And so it was funny because Greg Lewis, threw a ball and one of the receivers, it wasn't a great ball. So one of the receivers had dropped it. And so they, did some push-ups and Zay yells out real loud. He goes, hey, everybody got to do push-ups. So Greg Lou made a bad pass. So he dropped down, receivers coach, and started doing push-ups. And he goes, it don't matter who it is. Even Steve Bisciotti, if you had a drop, you would be doing push-ups. And so, of course, he cracked up laughing. But I just thought Bateman, like put on a show all week. But yesterday he was like Lamar was feeding him the rock, and it was cool to see the timing between them two. And Trenton Simpson is the real deal. Okay, I said it. Therefore, with all the other PQ-ness of over there in the other city that we now know that you're over there and residing in, go ahead and feed yourself all that fish and whatever other things you want to eat. But it's okay, homeboy, because we got your replacement. And did I say this out loud that he can cover like people out of the backfield? Like, I did say that. My bad. Oh, okay. Trenton Simpson, my man. Homeboy can run. Yeah. What's up?
Wow, you just trolled PQ. Hard.
By the way, okay. PQ doesn't like seafood. That's why he likes Pittsburgh better, Q. Yeah, he doesn't do fish.
He's going to go ahead and have some of whatever they got over there, and hopefully he won't have any food poisoning. Yeah, I said it.
Okay, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, taking next steps?
So I think Zay. So Isaiah, I think for him, from OTAs, all the media viewing that we were able to see as far as OTAs, it was interesting because he kind of was, just chilling. He wasn't really doing much, but holy wow. When that mini camp came on, the lights went on with him. Seam routes, deep overs, doing some level of mossing guys, like that whole funny one-hand catch thing, that jazz was real. Like he was just like, wow, this snatching it out of the air with ease. And he looked the part. Literally, I think Zay Flowers, what I'm appreciative about what he was doing, it's just working on his craft, but it was also him talking to some of the other dudes. I think it was number 18. I think Wade is his last name. There was a couple other young dudes that he was, he was talking to him and a couple other guys. Malik Cunningham, like, that brother, my goodness, like
he can do it. You think he can do it?
Whew, he could do it. And so I think the more this team takes shape, unfortunately, the injury bug, knock on wood, happens and you're trying to create depth. I think what EDC has given John Harbaugh and his staff as far as, evaluations of a 90-man roster, was it Tavion Robinson is this year's Charlie Kohler.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
My man.
What do you got
all
for him?
that,
You got
David Ajabo.
This year's Charlie Kohler that you're saying he's not going to produce much.
No. See, Charlie's my BFF. Don't give me all that. Sarah. I see what you tried to do there. You tried to flip it on me. See, Charlie's my BFF just because everybody
I love Charlie. I'm just saying, like, your prediction was wrong, so I'm nervous that this prediction
wasn't necessarily wrong.
Look at him clapping. He's clapping at me.
It was hampered by outside forces that
okay.
I think what he's saying
is control over.
What's going to be the outlandish prediction? That's what we want to know for Tavius.
I'm saying my boy T-Rob, he's going to I'm saying right now he's getting 8 sacks.
Dang.
Hold on, let me look up his numbers.
Wait, do you think he's going to lead the pass rushers? Is that going to lead him, or do you think somebody can beat 8? And I'm taking Matabike out of it. I'm talking about outside.
Thank you. Okay, because you took the pressure off me in that regards. I think there's going to be a double-digit sack guy wearing jersey 99. But I think TR is going to get 8, and then I think he'll lead the team in a Jarrett Johnson-esque type way as far as setting the edge. He's going to be such a dominant force as far as setting the edge. Other teams are going to be frustrated. And if anybody who's a Raven fan worth their weight in salt know what I mean when I say Jared Johnson can set the edge. So I'm telling you right now, 8 sacks.
Okay.
8 sacks.
Tavius
So
last
is
year.
going to get double digits. Probably Matabike. What about Van Noy?
Van Noy is just a pro's pro. What you saw in mini camp is just him being a pro. Like, I think in my mind, he can absolutely repeat what he did last year. I think it's going to be critically important, and this is critical because of his veteran flow that they take care of him. In other words, he doesn't need training camp. I mean, to be perfectly honest, he doesn't. And I think they really need to take care of him.
Yeah, he definitely proved that last year.
He proved that last year. Now he's going to have a
Ronnie
chance.
Stanley, the interception that actually turned into him catching the deflected pass,
right?
Yeah.
Showed me all that I needed to see. Homeboy, there was no limp, there was no gimp, there was no like, oh, I caught the ball and I don't want to hurt myself, I'm going to stop. Now, homeboy took off down the field at least 20 yards. Like, he was like, ho, 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 ho. Like, that was like 20, 25-yard run. Like, he looked the part.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it led him to saying
so you're predicting a resurgent year for Ronnie.
I'm saying Ronnie is going to be like, yo, unbelievable. I think y'all going to need our boy up in Canada, Cole Jackson, like on alert with the offensive line competition. Because Rosengarten, Fa'alele, who's out? Voorhees. Oh.
Who is he going to be the starting left guard? Voorhees?
Like, it's hard to predict with no pads.
Yeah.
But I ain't see no MFN like O lineman because of missed assignments. I'm telling you, like technique, all that. And them dudes, like, woo, I don't want to get hit in the chest by one of them dudes. Like, I'm telling you, I cannot wait for Philly. Like, that's going to be a test because they got some studs on their defensive front. I think that's going to be a great test. That offensive line, like, goodness.
So you're feeling good about the left side with Stanley.
Go ahead, say that again. Left side.
You're feeling good about the left side with Stanley and Voorhees. We know who Linderbaum is. What about the right side, right guard and right tackle?
So that's what I'm saying. I saw some things, saw some really good things. I think Fa'alele is not as heavy upper body leaning into it. I think there's some base there that's even improved. Like I said, Rosengarten over on that right side, like. Okay, all right, yeah, hey, bro, shoot, go ahead with your bad self. Just visualize yourself as Penix Jr. over there and left tackle and right tackle, and he's left-handed, and so you blindsided. Well, Lamar needs some love too. So hook that thing up. I think, I
who looks
think
better, Rosengarten or Fa'alele? They're two completely different, but who looks better without the pads?
I thought guard Fa'alele. I think Rosengarten is he's got some tutelage. Y'all had him on post draft, his coach. I mean, that NFL experience that he's gotten is invaluable. I think that's really awesome. That's what I'm saying. Like that offensive line battle is what you want. You want a battle. You want that. And I think it's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be special.
What about the level of concern for Marlon, if any at all?
I'm concerned.
Why? What is going on with him?
So anytime you hear the word nagging and you talk about, well, technically it was kind of calf and almost Achilles-esque soleus muscle related last year. When he kind of got, injured and all that. And, it's been like kind of like coming out of it type of thing. I mean, that DB room is deep and good and young and hungry and getting coached up big time. And they ain't flinching. Like, that might be the strongest group on the field, including the quarterbacks. Like, top to bottom.
So you think that, like, if he doesn't have a successful,
I'm not Eric DaCosta. I'm not a general manager. I don't know what to tell you on that. All I know is Eric got options.
Yeah. And he's coming off, for his standards, right? Marlon's coming off a year in which, 1, availability wasn't a calling card of his, and 2, consistency. He would tell you, he'd be the first to tell you, it was underwhelming last year.
You got some young, hungry, fast, physical dudes. Tez Walker can sprint like nobody. Oh, he reminds me of I was going to go third person on you, so I won't do that. But he reminds me of a more sleeker Torrey Smith. Torrey was like a muscle speed guy. Like you couldn't just like punk him. But Tez looks like a thoroughbred when he runs.
Wow.
And he's just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, he just like got that thoroughbred in him. Yeah.
You think he'll be used a bit? Is he ready to be used?
In spots. I think
in what he does well.
We're going to get answers as the preseason games come about. I think we're going to get answers for it. It's going to be good because I think this young group, and I credit the Ravens as a staff of preparing them. Like man, you talk about being a rookie in the league and there's the whole, turn on the fire hose and just get blasted with information. There sometimes the hose is on full blast, but for the most part, it's like, hey, here's what you got to do. Here's what you got to do. Here's what you got to do. And they're giving these guys opportunities to really learn and understand. And I think that it's settling a lot of their nerves down. Now, obviously, I'm no fool. I'm not going to, think there's this pie in the sky type thing and everything is all hunky-dory. Football's football, and veterans know how to do what they know how to do. But at least this rookie class, like, there's going to be an opportunity for them to contribute. And I think Tez is in that conversation.
I'll see you bright and early tomorrow. That's all I got.
You better get more than that and get him in the tuxedo fitting tailor. I'm getting tired of this.
Hey, you talk to your boy Bobby, and if he brings it tomorrow, I'm wearing it.
All right, but listen, real quick. I thought great advice from Don C. Take Qadry down to Florida, South Florida. Lamar wants the receivers to come down there to work out. That can't hurt his chances. Get him down there, Q.
I swear to you, I was like, Qadry, you'd be a fool if you don't stay and go up to Lamar before he leaves. Like, hey man, when we throwing down in Florida?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that'd be so bold.
I'm like, I'm serious. I'd be like, yo, bro, I'm serious. There's like 6 weeks there. He needs to roll down there. He really does. I think he would. There's so many pro guys that are down in South Florida that just be like in that final grind. You're just absorbing so much information. And if 8's down there and Zay and some other dudes are down there, I mean, you just like soaking all in nuance of information. And I think that would be really cool. By the way, his locker is next to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry says nothing.
Seems like a quiet dude.
Yeah, I was like, hey, welcome to being a rookie. And you sit next to a veteran who potentially has a resume that can be Hall of Fame worthy. So sit back and enjoy it.
Yes.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Really unique insight, Q. We appreciate you, man.
Great.
That was a lot of fun.
You took us on an emotional roller coaster, then gave us phenomenal insight inside a mandatory mini camp. That was great, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you guys always have me on. And yeah, like I said, Sarah, your boy, he's slipping because if he just gives me the tuxedo, I'm wearing it. But see, he's on that. He's too busy going to upstate New York, Sarah. That's what he's doing. He's going to upstate New York. Then, he's having all these other times of hanging out with other people. He doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't.
Yeah. Q, when you're playing golf tomorrow, yes, we're going to make fun of you. When you're playing golf tomorrow, ask him about his Manhattan excursion for a girl on Monday.
Oh, we talking about that?
That's for the golf course.
We're talking about that one, brother.
This round is going to be unreal. I can already tell this round at 7:50 tomorrow morning at Rattlewood in Mount Airy is going to be one that we never forget. Yeah,
we're ready
for sure.
We're ready for
it. Sure.
Appreciate you guys.
Enjoy the ride, my man. Can't wait to catch up in the morning.
Indeed.
See ya. Qadry Ismail with one of the all-time, I think, just discussions that really, if it's 128, people in the live chat are like,
my kids are like, Mom, you said we could go to the pool by 1:30.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can leave right now. I gotta
still change and get over there, but no, from him, trolling PQ.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen him do before.
Yep.
And then his Voorhees, who else did he like?
Well, I mean, he's high on Devonta and spots.
Yeah, Tavius Robinson. Like we're gonna have to revisit some of that. We're gonna have to revisit it.
Definitely. That'll be good for next week because now
we're heading into the quiet period.
Right. We go into this sort of black hole for a few weeks, which we'll get ready for training camp, of course. Kadir, as you've all learned, is chasing that training camp battle as well, and it should be a lot of fun to see how things unfold and what's going to be a super competitive back end of the Ravens 2024 wide receiver room. Rossi Clark and Rini, thank you guys for the support that you give us through Patreon. This is your monthly shout out. We appreciate all the belief and all the support. If you guys are interested in doing the same, visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. A huge thank you to Qadry Ismail, former Super Bowl winning Ravens wide receiver, for dropping by and spending 50 minutes with us. We just did a 50.
Wait, it was supposed to be 20.
We just did a 50-minute conversation with Q, and it's a little.
Did he get you a little teary-eyed when he started breaking down when he got the call?
From that's why I put him up on the big screen. I had a slide up there. Then he said he was starting to get choked up. I'm like, I'm going to put you on the big screen.
Let everybody see you crying while we get our emotions in check on the small screen.
There you have it. So, like the video if you enjoyed it. A little bit of extra, a little bit of bonus coverage for you today. And subscribe to the Vault for daily Ravens content if you don't already do so. We have content for you every day in the audio-only space as well. And, of course, next week, be on the lookout. I've learned. I'm not going to tell you who, but we will have a couple special guests dropping by throughout the week.
You have learned your lesson.
Very excited.
They're pretty good, though.
I'm actually really excited about both guests because they're going to give really good perspective, both like internally and externally. So
I'm looking forward to Monday.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too, because it's going to be an introduction is what it's going to be.
Right.
And then later on the week, it'll be just somebody who, man, so accomplished, so well-studied, so well-spoken, two-time Super Bowl champ. We're going to leave it at that before I say too much. Right?
You can't help yourself.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Good to have Sarah back. Good to have all of you with us. And again, a special thanks to Q for dropping by with a very, very unique and special interview, especially from a heartwarming standpoint for the Ismail family. So for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Friday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have an awesome weekend. Go Orioles. I'll see you at the ballpark tonight, perhaps, if you guys are out there. Later.